Okay, my friends, here it is. What I would consider to be possibly the most important video you need to be watching about having a healthy, thriving garden. Today I'm going to show you how to make JADAM Microbial Solution, or JMS for short. Now, this is really the cornerstone of a healthy, thriving garden. So learn to make this, begin implementing it, and you will see for yourself. So I'm going to put a link in the description to the actual JADAM book where you can purchase it yourself, but I'm going to show you how to make this solution. So let's just get right into it. I'll take you outside, show you how to make it, and then we'll come back in and I will tell you some things you need to know. Okay, now the first ingredient in the microbial solution is potatoes. Sweet potatoes also work. Now it does not matter if the potatoes have sprouted or if they're a little bit rotten. It's all good, it will all work. The main reason that we're using the potatoes is as a food source for the microorganisms to multiply. So I've done it so many different ways over the years and tested so many different ratios of this and that. I used to weigh it out specifically so that I knew exactly, how much to the gram of potatoes to use. And I found out it doesn't really matter. So about a full handful per 5-gallon bucket. So for this example, we're using 2 5-gallon buckets. So I've got about 4 small potatoes, about a good handful for each 5-gallon bucket. Then I'm going to fill the pot the rest of the way with hot water and boil the potatoes for about 10-15 minutes. Okay, here we are. We have let the potatoes boil for 20 minutes. We then shut it off and let them cool for an additional 20 minutes. Now, you then put the potatoes into a blender, and for each 5-gallon bucket, we will use 1 tablespoon of sea salt. Now, it must be non-iodized, 100% natural sea salt. The pink Himalayan salt is sea salt, so that is what we use. 1 tablespoon per 5-gallon bucket, because remember, we're doing 2 5-gallon buckets in this example. Then we're going to place the potato and sea salt mixture in the blender. We're going to blend it until it's smooth, about 15-20 seconds, something like that. The reason we are doing this is because it is going to expedite the whole process, and it's going to break up the chunks of potato and mix the sea salt in with it so that the microbes can access it faster because there's a much greater surface area. Now, if you don't have a blender, that's okay. You can just skip the whole blender step, actually, and you can just go on to the next step. But it is best with a blender. So you end up with this gelatinous kind of mixture. Now take a paint strainer that is made for a 5-gallon bucket or something similar and place into it 2 handfuls of leaf mold. Now remember from the other JADAM videos I've made, I've described this leaf mold. You go to the oldest forest in your area, you go to the biggest, oldest tree, to the base of that tree, clear away some of the leaves that are there, and acquire some of the rich, black, crumbly organic matter underneath. This is filled with the indigenous microorganisms that we need to inoculate this brew. So for each 5-gallon bucket, we're using 1 paint strainer and 2 handfuls of the leaf mold. Now here we are with 2 5-gallon buckets of rainwater. Now it's important not to use fresh tap water because tap water has chemicals in it that are literally designed to kill microorganisms. So if you have to use tap water, let it sit out for at least 24 hours to sort of off-gas some of the chlorine. But rainwater is best. Then take the paint strainer and put it around the 5-gallon bucket like shown, and then pour half of the mixture into it because we're making 2 5-gallon buckets here. Now, after you pour half the mixture into it, then take the strainer and slosh it around a whole bunch because you want to really massage the bag and you want to get everything dissolved and mixed in together. This is important. We are making like a tea, so bring it in and out, in and out. You want to really agitate it, get all the ingredients mixed together. The reason that the bag is there is it's keeping out any of the debris, but it's allowing all of the small stuff to go through, which obviously the microorganisms are plenty small. So get it mixed together real nice. Now after everything is thoroughly mixed together and the water is very cloudy and murky looking, then you just secure the bag to the side. I just wedge it in between the handle and the bucket, but you could clamp it with something, whatever you want. What's important though is that you put a tight-fitting lid on top of this because we don't want it to be disturbed by the wind or by insects or animals or any of that kind of stuff. So after it's all mixed together, put the lid on it. Okay, now here we are 12 hours later. I made this brew first thing in the morning, and this is towards the evening. And you can see already that it is starting to work. Now, here is the art form of this particular method. Now, because it's not aerated and we don't have all the air bubbles and stuff, we can see exactly how quickly the microorganisms are multiplying. We can see this by the air bubbles. That is the indicator of their activity. So it's only been 12 hours and it's probably 95 degrees outside. It's been 90 degrees. I mean, it's very hot and they're in direct sun. And so the microbes multiply in a direct correlation to temperature. The hotter it is, the faster they multiply. You see how many bubbles there are? This has only been 12 hours. And the cooler it is, the slower they multiply. So begin looking at 12 hours. Now we're going to let this sit another 12 overnight. Okay, now here we are, 24 hours after making the brew. And because it is in the 90s, it's only taken 24 hours. And you can see that this is nice and thick and vibrant with life. You can see the microbial activity by looking at it. There's tons of bubbles, and you don't see any water anywhere in between because this is thick and full of life. Right now, give or take, it is at peak. You want to use this solution now when you see this thick, vibrant life happening. Okay, now here we are 12 hours after that, after it was at its peak, and you can see clearly that the microorganisms have begun to die. This is not nearly as vibrant and as full of bursting with life as the other one, because the microorganisms have consumed all the food that is present in the solution, and now they have started to die off. So this is past its prime. Don't let it get this long. You see, this is 12 hours previous when it was nice and vibrant and full of life, and there's tons of bubbles. You don't see any air spaces, and now here we go. 12 hours later, it's all dead. You see a bunch of air spaces. This is dying, so don't let it get to this point. Okay, and just to illustrate how temperature dramatically affects this brew, here we are in the springtime when the temperature was peaking at about 75 degrees during the day, and it was getting down to 45 or 50 at night. You see how the foam is much tighter. The bubbles are much smaller. You can see the ring around the side. This is peak. Right now, you want to use this stuff because any longer it's going to die off. Now, this was about 48 to 70 hours after being made in the springtime because the temperature was about 70 or 75, as opposed to the other one you just saw where the temperature was 90, 95. That only took 24 hours, 36 hours maximum. It's done. So temperature affects it, but you got to learn how to tell when it's at the right stage. Okay, so why and when would I use this? Well, when we look to nature, as we always must do, we see that nature never makes any distinction between the good and the bad microorganisms. That is only the mind of man that makes that distinction. So, to nature, it is all just one. Everything exists as one, keeping itself in checks, in balance, in harmony. And so we must work with this natural law instead of trying to separate the good and the bad microorganisms, the anaerobic and the aerobic. Forget about all that. Nature has already done this for millions and billions of years. So we just must learn to work with the natural system of perfection that already exists. So to do this, we are going to make this microbial solution, dilute it with water 1 to 20, 1 gallon of this to 20 gallons of water. And we're going to water the plants, the soil, nice and heavily once a week. Okay, it can even be once every other week. And this is going to reactivate the soil, remediate. If you have old farmland soil, start spraying this on it every week. Okay, if you have poor soil, start spraying this on it every week. For maintenance, start spraying this on it every week. Okay, because there exists in this brew the perfect balance of microorganisms. Don't be concerned about any of the anaerobic, aerobic, good or the bad or any of that. It's already there. It's all good. Use this stuff and you will see. I will make other videos explaining this much more in depth, but for now, I just want to keep it simple. All right? So that's it, my friends. If you gained something from this video, give it a thumbs up, share the video far and wide so we can spread this knowledge. Keep a lookout for the live streams that I'm going to start doing. I'm going to try and do 1 or 2 of them a week because that was a lot of fun, all them questions and stuff. So yeah, stay tuned.